Hi, I'm Mike with the School of Self Reliance, and today we're out on the trail, and what we're doing is we're looking for wild edibles. I did a wild edibles video last year with a really terrible camera, and it came out pretty bad. Most of you probably saw it. You couldn't identify the plants, you couldn't see what I was pointing at or anything. So what we're going to do is redo that video a little bit here today. We were just walking down the trail here, and what we noticed was right here we've got some wild onion, and I'm just breaking it off. I'm not going to bother to dig up the onion. I suppose I probably should, but one of the things that you can always tell about wild onions or rants or anything like that is nothing else in the woods smells like an onion. And one of the things you want to look for in edible plants is familiar odors, things that smell familiar. And that most certainly smells like an onion. And there, like I said, there is nothing else in the wilderness that smells like an onion except an onion. So that's one way that you can certainly tell. The other way is we've all seen green onions at the grocery store. We've all seen them. We can identify this stuff very easily. These long, wispy kind of blades that come up. Sometimes they curl a little bit, they get too long, but you can get down in here and you can dig these up. What I'll use is a digging stick. They're usually kind of deep, a few inches at least. Need a better stick. Still need a better stick. Some people would say dig with your knife. I never do. Not unless it's maybe just like a quarter of an inch or something. But for the most part, I refuse to dig with my knife in the field. Again, it's your most important tool that you carry with you, so don't abuse it. Now we're getting down to the tuber. Get down underneath it and pull it up. And there you have it, a wild onion tuber right there. Just very small. It's early spring, so these aren't really mature or ripe yet. They can be eaten though, and this is just the end of April, so these things will get a lot bigger and a lot more pronounced, and this whole area is full of them. If you go ahead and take a look right here, and then if we come over a little bit, these are actually wild chives just growing, and I just pulled up a whole root of them, and these are all perfectly edible, and they would go a long way to flavoring your dinner pot, you know, for a hobo stew on the trail. They smell exactly like chives, exactly the way that they should, and they would, like I said, they would go a long way to flavoring up your dinner. So if you got a squirrel or a rabbit or something that you're going to put in the pot, this will go a long way towards it. You could also stuff the animal with these. But it is edible, and they're in large quantity. They're all over. We're back with more on these wild onions and wild chives. One thing I forgot to tell you just a minute ago is that these types of plants, they like moist areas. Sometimes you'll find them not too far from small creeks, things like that, but usually just inside, if there's a wet area just outside of a field, you'll find them there. Or if there's good moist ground, something that gets a decent amount of sunshine, but is still relatively moist. I don't mean wet, just moist, you know, well watered. And they tend to thrive in those kind of areas. Sometimes you'll find them on the edges of fields and stuff where they've been cultivated before, and of course they've been blown and migrated. Chives are something that they will take over an area. They will spread. If you plant just a few in one area, in a couple of years you'll have them all over the place. But they're all over this area here, and it's a fairly wet area. There's a small stream right here behind us, and there's a field out there. And if we look to the other side of the creek bank, there's a whole patch of them growing over there, wild onions, and there's more off to the left. So these types of areas are good areas to look for them in, but like I said, not wet ground, moist ground. All right, what we have here is common North American dandelion, and they're all over the place in North America. We all can identify them by this very particular leaf. You know, looks like a spear. It's got all kinds of serrations down it like this. This is early spring again, so like I said, it hadn't sprung. This hasn't sprouted completely yet. We've got the flowers that haven't come out down here. But the leaves of this plant are completely edible, just like salad. You can just pick them and eat them. I would suggest maybe rinsing them off. You can boil them. And the root of the plant, if you dig up the root and you take it and you properly prepare it, this root right here, what you do is you put it in your mess kit and you brown it. You just go ahead and bake it up until you can crush it. Basically turn it kind of blackish, and it makes a passable coffee substitute. It doesn't taste half bad. It really does actually taste quite a bit like coffee. But you need a few of them. Just pull up the root, brown them up, and then crush them up and boil them in water, and it will make a pretty good coffee substitute. And these leaves, like I said, you can go ahead and eat them like salad. So they'll add substance to your little hobo stew if you're making something like that along the trail. If you want to eat them by themselves or however, but they will help you survive in a situation where you need food. This is more on the dandelion. We all know the flower that's associated with it once it springs. We can all identify this really easily. And again, we've got the leaves, the root system. The flower and stuff can be boiled into a tea right along with its stem. And you can eat the stem. Virtually the whole plant is edible. But I just wanted to make sure that we all knew what the flower looked like. You generally find these types of plants on the edges of waste areas, the edges of fields. They're generally out in the sun. They don't like shaded areas. They like nice sunny areas. So open expanses, fields, waste areas, things like that, sides of roads, or trails in the woods that get a lot of direct sunlight, and you'll find dandelions. All right, what we have here is some young thistle. And this particular thistle, you can always tell that it's thistle if you look right here at the edges, just at the very tip of the plant. There's a white or brownish white kind of needle or prong on the end of every single leaf. Now, it's furry, and they do sting a little bit, you know, if you're not careful. They do have a toxin inside of them, which is formic acid. Formic acid is destroyed by boiling. Some plant toxins can be neutralized by heat. Formic acid is one of them. So this plant, though it is young, this is edible, and you can boil this, and you don't need to throw away the broth after you're done or anything like that. You drink it just the same. You wash it off, boil it, and you go ahead and drink the broth. You go ahead and keep it. The formic acid is completely destroyed by boiling, but you can always tell these kind of spear point kind of leaves like this. And like I said, the little whitish brown right here, this little needle that's right here. Nettles are also another one that have formic acid in them. If we can find some nettles, I'll show you some out here, but it's a little early in the year to find nettles. But most thistles are edible. Later in the year, this will grow, and there will be stalks coming out of it, and there'll be a purple kind of flower on the end. On the video, I'll make sure that there's a picture of both a young one and a mature one for you so that you can see the flower. But this will grow, and this thing will get to be huge. It'll make a hell of a meal in and of itself. But even these young ones like this can most certainly be eaten. Just boil them. Like I said, you don't have to disregard the broth or anything like that. And boil them until their needles become soft. And you can eat that. You generally find thistles, again, in semi-dry waste areas, edges of fields, roads, things like that. Trails in the woods generally get a good deal of sunlight, kind of dusty areas. You want to look there. And like I said, edges of fields, places like that. There's a few other places that you can find thistles, but those are the most common. Okay, this is a really good example of a young broadleaf plantain, common to North America and lots of other places. This is actually the most widely distributed medicinal crop in the world. These are pretty young examples of plantain, and this is actually Plantago major, which is the broadleaf version. And this is really easily identified by these striations, just these long lines here on the back. This kind of purplish color down here on the bottom. And you can see the veins going all the way through this. This is a really easy plant to identify. These plants are really, really good for medicinal purpose. They're also extremely edible. They are bitter, and it does get better by boiling though. But if you make a poultice out of the leaves and stuff, you can apply it to a wound. It has antibiotic properties. It can help with infections, stings, anything like that. That you would normally use, something like Neosporin or any of that. This is your baby for in the woods right here. And again, like I said, you can't eat them. They are bitter. That's made better by boiling. In the summertime, these will have a long shoot that comes out of them that will be filled with seeds all the way up, and you can eat those seeds too. We'll come back in our second video on edible plants, and I'll show you some much more mature plantain. Again, this is very early spring, so these plants are very small. They haven't flowered yet, but this is a really easy plant to identify. I'll bet you've walked over it 100 times in your own backyard or right by your sidewalk and never knew that it was a natural medicinal or an edible plant. When you're out on the trail and you're looking for wild edibles, remember, there is a lot in nature out there to eat, but about 70% of all plant life is poisonous or toxic to humans in one way or another. And that doesn't mean that all 70% will kill you if you make a mistake. Many of them will just make you sick. But sick is something you don't want out in the field, especially if you're in a survival situation or an emergency of some type. You don't want to be sick, and you definitely don't want to have diarrhea or vomiting. So what I want to talk to you about is that when you're working with plants, positive identification is the best method. You don't want to be guessing about what you're eating or putting into your mouth. You want to take the time, read the books, look at videos, go out in the woods, make sure you can identify the plants before you eat them. And before you actually have to put it to a test in a real world environment. Remember too that many things in nature, it seems like the guys who make up the books, the survival manuals and edible plants books, seem to be able to find the perfect plant that has all the perfect features and characteristics to make positive identification easy. I have rarely found that to be the case out in Mother Nature. Usually things do look slightly different or altered, or some of the features don't look quite right, or the colorings. So you have to get used to it. And positive identification is what you're going to need. And the only way you're going to get that is to get out and look for the plants, read the books, look at the videos. There's a lot of good schools out there that can teach you. One of the other things that you can do when you're out in the field and you don't know for sure, but you think you have the right plant, is something called the Universal Field Edibility Test. And now this is a long, involved process. It takes about 24 hours. And in a survival situation, that may be a lot more than what you actually want to take time to do. But it's out there. And it starts by not eating or drinking anything for 24 hours. Excuse me, for 8 hours. 8 hours, I'm sorry about that. So you don't eat or drink anything for 8 hours. Then you take whatever plant you have, like this, and the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to separate it into its basic parts. You're going to separate the leaves from the stem and all of the parts. If there's a flower and so on, you're going to separate them up. And you're going to start with one piece of the plant, like this. You've got a leaf, you're going to start this way. You're going to take it, you're going to rub it on your skin, and you're going to wait 15 minutes and see if there's a burning or a stinging reaction or anything like that on your skin. If there isn't, you're going to take that part of the plant and you're going to do this. You're going to rub a little bit of it on your lip. You're going to wait another 15 to 20 minutes. I actually kind of like to wait about an hour. If there is no reaction on your lip, then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to place it inside of your mouth. You're just going to let it sit there, touching your tongue and your gums. And you're going to let it sit there for 15 minutes, and then you're going to spit it out, and you're going to wait. You're going to wait another 15 to 20 minutes, maybe an hour. And if there's no reaction, then take some of it, put it in your mouth, and chew it up. Let it sit there. Don't swallow it. Wait 15 minutes after you've done this. If there's no reaction, swallow that little tiny bit of what you just processed. Then you're going to sit around and you're going to wait at least an hour, and you're going to see whether there's any ill effects. Me personally, I'd like to wait longer than that. But this whole thing, you're going to wait about 8 hours total after you've swallowed this. If there's no ill effects within 8 hours, you can consider that part of the plant to be safe. Remember, some plants you can eat the leaves, but the stem is deadly. Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes you can eat a tuber or a flower off a plant, but the rest of the plant is harmful or fatal. And so you want to test each and every section of the plant. And rather than going through all of that in a survival situation, the best thing that you can possibly do for yourself is to know the plants before you have to eat them. Go out, get the knowledge, get the training, read the books, look at it, and go out and try it for yourself. You know, get out in the field and look at the plants. Know what you're doing. Positive identification is the very best. And stinging plants and things like that, most of the time, stinging plants in North America, they just have formic acid in them. It's destroyed by heat. So once you heat it up, once it's boiled, the formic acid is gone. It's the same with ants. If you were eating insects, ants, they inject you when they bite you with formic acid. Well, you can eat ants. All you have to do is boil them. And that destroys the formic acid, and the ant is then edible. It's the same with a lot of plants. But knowing the plant's the most important thing, and knowing what you're doing with them. And some plants are okay to eat in some seasons and not in others. So get out there and learn about that. We're going to do some more videos on this subject of edible plants. We'll make it an ongoing video, probably 2 or 3 of them, where I take you out in the field and we look at different plants and I show you where to find them and how to prepare them. We'll get more in depth with this. But if you like what we're doing and you support what we're doing, subscribe to our channel, like us on Facebook, share our videos with other people. Thanks again for viewing. We appreciate it.